Hello and welcome to another Heritage Membership interview for Sons and Daughters of Italy at John Pirelli Lodge. My name is Sean Power, I'm your host, and today I'm here with my dear friend, Linda Fischbach. Linda, thank you for joining.
I'm excited to talk about my family and our heritage.
Wonderful. Well, let's jump right in. In our culture, in our community, family names are so important.
Yes.
So many people have deep connection with the names of their relatives. Can you share with us the names from your family tree?
Yes. On my mother's side, her mother, the family names were Bracco and Bresso. Those were my grandmother's parents. And then on my grandfather's side, my mother's maternal grandfather was Zucco and Zucco.
Mm-hmm.
And that little tiny village, in fact, they have Via Zucco as a street. So that was a very common name in the village. And on my paternal grandmother's side, her last name was Emma Guione, and this is very common in northern Italy to chop off the ending vowels. Our cousins, their last name was Marcone, so instead of Marconi or Guione, they chop it off, and she also, on her mother's side, was Dotto, D-O-T-T-O. So.
How long you've been a member at Pirelli Lodge?
I have been a member, Sean, for 30 years, and I first went out to the lodge when my sister-in-law had a wedding reception back in 1972. And since that time, of course, I participated in the festas and actually joined the lodge in the 1990s.
Wonderful. So you mentioned your sister's wedding. Maybe some other early memories about the lodge, or maybe even more recent memories about the lodge?
An early memory was we were the chairs of the first calzone booth, and we made the calzones one by one in a microwave. So we have come a long way since Stan got us started.
Yes. Well, I won't ask you to compare the recipe from the early calzones. That was actually my first job at Festa, was working calzones, so wonderful.
Great.
Well, so maybe it was a little bit of a family connection that drew you to the lodge. Maybe you can speak about how that has grown through your time as a member.
Yes. Yes, I'm actually from a small coal mining town in Renton, Pennsylvania, came out here to go to the University of Dayton, and I wanted to connect with the Italians in Dayton because in our hometown we had a lodge called the Circolo Febo, and every event, weddings and funeral gatherings, they were held at the Italian lodge. The basement actually had a bocce court in the basement.
Wow.
So I grew up, actually, my world was very small in that town. We lived on the same row, as it was called. There were 7 rows because all the houses belonged to the coal mine. And we, my cousins, 10 cousins lived on the street, 4 families, both sets of grandparents lived there in the town. So it was a wonderful world, and very ethnic, not just Italians, but other nationalities also. And I wanted to emulate that and find that camaraderie and fellowship in Dayton, Ohio.
Wonderful. And I love that you talked about it being kind of its own little enclave community So many of our members have shared that's what our lodge feels like today.
Yes.
Back to your story, though, I'd really like to kind of learn in reverse. So how did your grandparents end up in a coal mining town in Pennsylvania?
Well, three of my grandparents were born in Italy. My mother's, both of her parents, her mother was born in a small town called Veralengo that was a little south of Turin. And my grandfather was born in a very small town in the Dolomites, the foothills of the Alps, about 2 hours north of Venice. And my father's mother was born in Padua. We know of St. Anthony of Padua, and this small town is south of Venice. So they were all from the northern region, but in the early 1900s, of course, there was poverty throughout Italy, and there were still those pockets that weren't officially united. So the customs were a little different in the northern part of Italy. And the main reason that my family members came to America was the land of opportunity. In fact, my mother even said, we really believed the streets were paved with gold. And they were looking for it as children. Where is the gold? The other thing that happened in the northern part of Italy is that recruiters from the U.S. would go to these areas of poverty and recruit the men to work in jobs that were dangerous. And of course, coal mining was a dangerous profession, especially in those days. And that's how family members, in fact, my grandfather, Antonio Zucco, came to America searching for his father because his father had gone several years before to America and had not returned. So he did locate his father, and he was able to then start working in a coal mine. So that work was hard and difficult, but it was better, as my grandfather said, than the poverty that we were in.
That is, I think that's really fascinating because so many early immigrants took those manual labor jobs, coal mining,
Absolutely.
The rail line, which was really big in
Yes.
this country.
Yes.
Now, the regions of Italy that your family comes from,
Yes.
have you had a chance to go back to visit?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I've been back 3 times. The last time, it was in 2013, and we took my mother back.
Oh.
My siblings and our spouses.
Wonderful.
And she had not been there for 79 years.
Wow.
So that was pretty emotional
I
because she had memories there as a child, and then to go back and see the family home and all of that. So that was very special.
When you went back with her, were there any family members that she got to reconnect?
Yes, we have cousins there. They would now be my second cousins that had a beautiful welcome for our family, and that was very emotional.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Very emotional, and we, my siblings and I, still keep in contact, and we were Skyping, and now we're doing a follow-up from Skyping, but we correspond, we exchange photos, and they have been to the United States and stayed with us, so it's very dear.
Well, I can see how much of a big impact that had on you.
Yes.
Did you ever recall, did your parents or grandparents recall any stories about the transition, the trip, the first getting acclimated to American way of life?
Yes, in fact, the big story that my family, I think, strengthened our family was that my grandparents, Della and Tony, they married in the United States because Tony came here as a minor, and he became friends with Della's father, who was a minor. And she was only 14 and a half when she got married, and he was about 7 years older. But they married, and I have some pictures, of course, of the wedding, traditional wedding with the music and dancing. But they got married in 1919. And then they had 3 boys, Silvio, Gino, and Elmer, who was an American name. My grandmother said she liked the cartoon Elmer Fudd, so she named him Elmer.
Okay.
But, and then she became pregnant again, and my grandfather was hoping for a girl. So when the baby was born, it was a girl. And so my grandfather, the story goes, said, "Gloria, Gloria." He was so happy that they ended up naming their daughter Gloria. And that's my mother.
Beautiful.
But after Gloria was born, this was in 1927, in early 1928, things at the mine were getting sparse as far as work. And my grandfather told my grandmother, "I'm going to send you back to Italy for a summer vacation." This is in 1928, the spring. So my grandmother had never met the family in Italy, her husband's family, but she went to Italy with her 3 young sons and her baby daughter.
Wow.
For a 3-month summer vacation.
Wow.
Well, the 3 months stretched into 6.5 years. They were separated. My grandfather, the mine closed in Renton. He had to go to the hard coal region in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and look for work there. And he would send money to my grandmother, but she was living with her mother-in-law, who did not really have an income. But the other factor that year when they went was that my grandmother did not realize when she left for the summer vacation that she was also pregnant. So on Christmas Eve, this is true, when my uncles, the 3 boys, went to Mass, they came home and they had a new baby brother. My uncle, Francesco Marcello, Frank, my Uncle Frank, and this is my mother here.
Beautiful.
She made her first communion, they both did. So she was about 6 in this picture and he was 5 in the picture. And I've recreated this picture with my twins, my daughter Molly, who also wore this dress then for her first communion in the U.S., and her twin brother Nathan. But that story, that Christmas story, is a bright spot. What my grandmother did, she was a remarkable person. She was an interpreter because they lived in the Dolomites and it was ski country a little further north. There were alpine hotels where wealthy Austrians and even Germans during the time would need an interpreter. She would translate documents and she would get paid. Otherwise, she was taking in laundry. And her big worry was in the early 1930s that Mussolini, like Hitler, was recruiting. Actually, he was demanding that all young boys between the ages of 8 and 14 would become a part of the fascist youth movement. It was called the Balella movement, similar to the Hitler Youth. And my grandmother was writing to my grandfather and saying, we have to get back to America. Our 3 sons, older sons, will be, put into the Mussolini's youth, and what's going to happen to us. So my grandfather was able to beg and borrow from family members, and this again shows the Italian spirit, to get money to pay for them to come back to America. And my mother tells the story. She was 7 years old. They came back in 1934, and it was a 10-day voyage. They were on a ship called the Conte di Savoia, the Count of Savoy, and they were in steerage, the 3rd class, and she was deathly ill, as she describes it, for 10 days, and she never wanted to go swimming or near the water, or and how we got her to go back to Italy, to fly over the ocean. I said, "Mom, we will drug you." We gave her pills. She woke up and she was in Italy.
Oh,
so, but
wonderful.
that story I heard so much about. And when my grandmother and the 5 children arrived in New York, they had to take a train to Pittsburgh, and then from Pittsburgh they had to take a trolley to the relative's house. And I guess all the family was there, woke up, and I guess had this wonderful welcome and celebration. But my mother said what she said to her brother, Frank, "Which one is our dad?" They had never met their father.
Wow.
He had never met his father. Of course, the older boys remembered their father, but so it was quite a celebration and a real tribute that they were able to stay together. And my grandparents actually celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary and
Wonderful.
beyond, but they were a real inspiration to me.
Linda, that is absolutely beautiful, and what a testament to the strength of Italian community and culture.
Absolutely.
Family is such a big part of who we are,
Absolutely.
and that's a wonderful example. Speaking of family, I know there's a story about this dress. Could you tell us
Yes.
about it?
Yes, the dress, as I had mentioned, was my grandmother's wedding dress, and she made it into the first communion dress for her daughter, my mother, Gloria, which she wore in Italy, and then my grandmother put it in storage, and we didn't really know about the dress, sadly, until my grandmother died, and we opened the box, and my mother said, "Oh, that's my first communion dress." So it was a little tattered, and so I kind of restored it somewhat so that my daughter, Molly, could wear it, and then Molly's daughter, Cammie, has worn it, and we hope that it will still be cherished by future generations.
Amazing. So a dress made in 1919
Yes.
is somewhere in your cedar chest right now.
We have the dress.
That
Yes.
is incredible, and absolutely a beautiful example of connecting
Yes.
the past to the present. Well, let's speaking of the present, let's maybe talk to you about some traditions that have been a part of your upbringing and your experience.
Well, food, of course.
Always.
And I remember my grandmother would make pizza in the 1950s, and nobody knew what pizza was, but we called it pizza pie, and it was in a dish, and kind of like a deep dish pizza these days, but we all loved it. And being from northern Italy, we would have risotto, especially my grandmother, Zucco, being from the Piedmont region. They grow rice in that area, and she made wonderful risotto. She and her sisters and my mother, they were all cooks. They cooked at schools and cooked for the church and cooked for dinners. So food was really a way of celebrating in every event. And we had, again, another northern Italian tradition of a dish called bagna calda, which literally means hot bath. And that was a mixture of olive oil, butter, anchovies, garlic. You can imagine, you can kind of smell that aroma. And it was warmed, and you gathered around on New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve, and you had a tray of vegetables or bread, good Italian bread, and you would dip it into the dip, the bagna calda. And it was just a camaraderie of the family, and we always have that at our family reunions, just in remembrance of the family.
Wonderful. I can smell it now, and I'm sure my wife would not like that.
That's true.
But, so there are certainly things that we try to share with younger generations.
Yes.
It's a different time. And what are some things that you really feel strongly about emphasizing with either today's youth or the future generation of Italian Americans, things we want to hold on to? What would be your message there?
I think what I felt from our family was just that sense of family and a welcoming, that you're always welcome, and and they had a richness to them that wasn't financial riches, but just a generosity. And they just loved people and welcoming and hardworking people, good people, blue collar people. That closeness and that pride of, I remember my grandfather, Tony, he said at one of the family gatherings, he was probably in his 70s or 80s, and he said, "Look, all this because of me." That's what he said. And he just was very proud of his family.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this one? If there was one person, past or present, or if there is one person, past or present, that you could talk to, an Italian American, who would it be, and what would you talk about, or what would you ask?
Well, the first person who popped up as an Italian, I'd like to talk to Pope John the 23rd. He's not an American, of course, but I remember as a Catholic, he changed, I was a young girl at the time, and we had to wear the veils to church, and we had to wear sleeves and sweaters, even in the summertime. Because he made those changes. And yeah.
You want to know why?
Why? And he changed the church into the modern church, from these old ways to the new ways, and brought in the English language. And I remember saying Mass in Latin, with the prayer book. So yes, I would enjoy meeting him.
Well, Well, so is there anything about any thing in your experience that you really feel that you want to share, maybe something we haven't touched on, whether it's a family experience, a lodge experience, anything in your experience that maybe we didn't touch on that you'd like to get to?
Well, I do have one little prop here that I wanted to share with you. This pillow was actually brought to America by a godmother in our family. And godmothers and godfathers, in the dialect, they were called kumad, kumpare, but it was co-madre, co-padre. In other words, if your parents died, they would take care of you. So godparents were very revered in the Italian family, and it was an honor to be asked to be a godparent. But this Kumad Teresine, Teresa, brought this with her family, and in Italian it's stitched, and it says, "Ricordatemi sempre," remember me always. And I think that was what I remember my dad's mother, my grandmother Guillaume was her last name. She said, when we were leaving, the whole village came out to say goodbye because they knew they would never see them again. So you had to be very brave to go to America, because in the early 1900s, the likelihood of you ever getting back, it didn't happen. And this is the old Italian flag, the papal flag, actually. So this is, very old, before the unification of Italy. But this was special, and I think that's why these enclaves, people settled near other family members or near people from their villages because they were leaving their families. And it was very brave. And she said that when they were saying goodbye, they were, "Vate coraggio, have courage, go with courage."
That's what it took. Yeah.
So they were very courageous to leave, and
absolutely wonderful.
So that's,
Linda, that's beautiful. Ricordatemi sempre. I can't think of a better way to conclude. So I just really want to thank you for taking a few minutes to share. And this has absolutely been wonderful. And it's wonderful just to get to know you a little bit better.
Well,
so I'm honored.
I feel the same, Sean.
Thank you so much. Well, that will do it for this episode. Thank you all for watching, and tune in next time as we interview another lodge member learning about their heritage, culture, and experience at Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. Thank you.